Hey everyone, Mario again, coming at you with another movie review, and it is another entry in childhood favorites. It's been a while since I've done an entry in this series. Anyway, today's film is one that I watched off and on over the past week. It's a film I haven't watched in about a decade or more. It's one of those films, watch it a bunch as a kid and then, set it aside for a few years and then come back to it with a more mature mind to see if you still enjoy it. And I have to say I still enjoy it, though as an adult, I noticed a few things about it I did not notice as a kid. The movie is The Land Before Time. Coupled with the Rite of Spring sequence from Fantasia in the Jurassic Park films, this film is one of the reasons I was interested in dinosaurs as a kid. And it was definitely one of my favorite animated films as a child. Bluth was also a big part of my childhood because I watched other films he did, Rock-a-Doodle, An American Tail. Oddly enough, I never watched The Secret of Nim, and I still haven't. I know some people are going to go, "Oh, you should watch The Secret of Nim. How dare you not watch The Secret of Nim?" That's true, I just never watched it as a kid. At least that I can remember. Might have. The film was directed by Don Bluth, and this is the film he made in between An American Tail and All Dogs Go to Heaven. And it was co-produced by George Lucas and Steven Spielberg. And funny enough, outside of the Indiana Jones franchise, this is the only film that they co-produced together. At least thus far. It was released by Universal Pictures, and it was a critical and financial success, and it spawned a multi-million-dollar franchise, and it, as of today, has 13 direct-to-video sequels and a television series on top of merchandise, toys, video games, etc. Now, when it comes to the sequels, I've only ever watched the first... I'm going to have to actually count this real quick. I think the answer is 5. 1, 2, 4... directly after Great Valley Adventure, Time of Great Giving, Journey Through the Mist, and The Mysterious Island. And I have seen bits and pieces of a sequel a couple after that, The Big Freeze, but other than that, by the time they started to produce more and more sequels, I was actually getting out of the Land Before Time phase, so I never looked up the other ones. Maybe one of these days I might actually look into watching them, but, it's just one of those things, not really a big interest thing, though. Interesting note on that is this year they're actually releasing another one. It's the first one they've done in almost 10 years, because after they did The Wisdom of Friends, they did the TV series, and there's been no activity. I actually thought the series was dead until I was doing research for this review, and I find out, oh, they're doing another one. Good for them. Now, the film is set during the reign of the dinosaurs. What era, it doesn't say. Wikipedia says the Cretaceous, but considering that all the dinosaur species and other reptiles we see all lived in different eras, you can just say it's a what-if Earth. All the groups live in their own herds, and the planet is going through intense drought, and the herds are trying to find a place to live. And some of the herds call this place the Great Valley. And one of the herds that is going is a herd of long necks, which are dinosaurs, as their name suggests, that have long necks, like apatosauruses, brontosauruses, and all that. Based on their designs, I'd say they're apatosauruses, but they never really give a name other than long necks. And as the herds are going, they're raising young. The long neck herd only hatches a single baby, sadly, and that baby is Littlefoot. Now, as he grows a little bit older, he first interacts with some other creatures, the first one being Sarah, who is a three-horn. Now, a little bit after he meets her, they are attacked by Sharptooth, which is a T-Rex, and in this attack his mother is killed. And this is one of those scenes that really defines sad scenes in cinema aimed at kids. Just the way the animation is done, the lighting, the music, and of course the voice acting. It's one of those moments that you're like, I was elected to lead, not to feel. I'm feeling. And you really feel for Littlefoot, especially at the couple scenes later where he thinks his mother's still alive and he sees it was only his shadow. Now, watching it again, I also had a double thing about it. It's like, well, his mother didn't really suffer that many grievous injuries, so why'd she die? Then, my subconscious mind answered again. It's like, oh, that's right. T-Rex had a very strong bite radius, so even if he only got her in the back, maybe it caused some weird injury to her spine that took her out. At least that's my guess. Because looking at it, she didn't seem to be bleeding a lot, but then again, it's a kids movie. We're not going to show a lot of gore and blood, and even if they were going to, I bet Spielberg and Lucas would have said something like, you can't be showing that much blood in there. This is a kids film. Now, as I said before, this is one of those films that you watch as a kid and then you watch as an adult, and you notice certain things that you didn't notice, at least consciously. And one thing I noticed is watching this film is that this film deals with the subject of prejudice. Now, as a kid, my mind probably noticed this subconsciously, but then watching it, I'm like, maybe it's from watching some of the Cinema Sins videos, but with certain bits of dialogue in this film, I couldn't help but mutter to myself, and that's racist, 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 and that's racist. I know I'm spamming that term a lot here, but listen to some of the dialogue the dinosaurs say to one another, and you can really see that in the world that they create in this film, the dinosaurs really don't like each other. Or at least when it comes to, different species. Like the long necks don't usually get along with the three horns don't get along with the long necks, they don't get along with big mouths, they don't get along with the flyers, and nobody gets along with the sharp tooth, because screw sharp teeth. They're gonna eat everybody. And I think that's an interesting world, at least, to deal with the subject of prejudice. And as Littlefoot's mother mentions at one point in the film, it's that way because that's the way it's always been. And of course, the fact that you have the young kid questioning it, why it's like that, that's interesting subject to bring up. It's like, why is it this way? Well, it's the way it's always been. Why? Why is that the way it's always been? This is the way it's always been. Almost kind of like trying to sweep it under the rug. And of course, catastrophe causes the groups to come together and to try to survive. Or at least the kids in the group to try to survive, which there is a message there, since it's the kids who are being shown the prejudice at the beginning, that they come together to survive. There's a message there that shows. Maybe I'm reading into this a little too deeply, but to me I interpret that as the film trying to say that for prejudice, the way to defeat it is for a younger generation to look at the prejudice that the previous generation is doing and going, no, that is not nice. That's not the way it should be. Another thing I don't remember from when I last saw it is the film is not that long. It's only 69 minutes. And in doing some of the research, I found out the film was actually going to be a little bit longer. There's about 10 minutes of footage was cut from the film during post-production editing, mostly at the behest of Spielberg and Lucas, because they thought that the scenes that were cut might have been too dark and intense for young children. And as Spielberg told Bluth while looking at the scenes, it's too scary. We'll have kids crying in the lobby and a lot of angry parents. You don't want that. And the footage came up to about 19 scenes, and it mostly pertained to scenes involving Sharptooth, putting the 5 characters in mild peril or duress, and most of this was cut or trimmed. Bluth was apparently unhappy with the cuts, and he actually still has a copy of the footage on his own personal copy of the film, though he hasn't said if he'll ever release it. I would actually like to see a director's cut of this film released one day, but who knows if we'll ever get it. And in doing this, I also found out another thing about the film, and that is that part of the third act was actually changed around a bit in editing, and this was something Bluth did not like. And learning about this, it makes some of the transitions in these scenes make a lot more sense, because looking at it, it's like, okay, that's the reason that Littlefoot goes from celebrating with his friends to all of a sudden just talking to his mother alone, and then all that message with him seeing the Great Valley. That would have made much more sense if he had seen that after he left the others, then went back to find him and then led him to the Great Valley. That would have made a lot more sense. Why they switched that around, who knows? It just makes Littlefoot's delivery of his lines feel a bit awkward, and just the editing makes it still seem awkward. Maybe they thought the Great Valley's reveal would make better for a finale. The voice cast, I feel, do a good job, and I'm only going to talk about the main ones for this. We got Gabriel Damon, who voices Littlefoot. Outside of this, the only major things he's done is he did the voice of the title character in Little Nemo, and he also played Hob in RoboCop 2. Nice little triple connection there, because all three of those, RoboCop 2, Little Nemo, and this film were all childhood favorites of mine, so a nice little interconnection there. Little trivia note is that Littlefoot was originally going to be called Thunderfoot, but a Triceratops from a children's book already had that name, so copyright, trademark, all that jazz. Candace Hudson voiced Sarah, and I thought she did a pretty good job with the role. She's both tough and sensitive, depending on how the scene is. And a little bit of trivia, she's the only main voice actress who reprised her role in any of the sequels, though she was only in 2 through 4. Why, I don't know. Maybe after that she got tired with it. And as of right now, that is actually the last acting thing she's been in. Why she decided to retire from acting, I don't know. Outside of this, the only thing that I can come up with that she was into stuff like Reader Rabbit, Dolly Dearest, and The Maddening. Judith Barcy voiced Ducky, and I thought she, and I thought she did a good job as well. Other than this, she had a role in Jaws 4, and she also voiced Anna Maria in All Dogs Go to Heaven, which is sadly her final voice role. This makes it even sadder, is that in between the release of that film and the release of this, and right before this film was released, she was murdered by her alcoholic father. Such a tragic story. Such a tragedy. Who knows what her film career could have been like if it wasn't for that jealous asshole. Because from what I've gathered, he killed himself too, so Coward didn't even have the courage to face what he'd done. Will Ryan voiced Petrie, and like the others, they did a good job with it. Outside of this, he's had small roles in other Bluth films, and he also did some voice work in Hi Hi Puffy Amiyumi. Let's see how many people actually remember that show, other than me. Helen Shaver voiced Littlefoot's mother, and I thought she did a good job with it. And probably the moment that stands out is how she enunciates her lines in the death scene. No coughing or, over the top death stuff, just, like a mother trying to remain calm as she's dying and telling her son what to do. Other than this, the only other major role of note is she played Kate in Tremors 2. So another film from my childhood, another little connection there, kind of funny. Speaking of childhood connections, the narrator was Pat Hingle, Commissioner Gordon himself from the Burton Schumacher films. He also did the brief character of Rooter, who apparently wasn't in the original script but was added to soften the blow of the death of Littlefoot's mother. You can kind of tell that he was kind of shoehorned in there a little bit because of from one scene to another, but I think it works. And I like Rooter's dialogue when he realizes why Littlefoot's upset and he's explaining that it's nobody's fault. He doesn't word it this way, but he's basically telling Littlefoot that death is just another part of life. And the way he words it, I think, fits this type of film, and also the fact he's talking to a kid. Another little interesting bit of trivia is that there is another deleted scene where the group finds an oasis, but there are two groups of dinosaurs already there, and they discriminate against the group, basically telling them only Ducky can drink there. So he's like, well, we don't want any of your kind, but Dougie there, yeah, she can drink. We like her kind. I don't know why I made the dinosaur talk like that, but more racist dinos. That would have been an interesting scene to see in the film, but probably some of the dialogue probably would have made the message a little bit too obvious. Might have made some parents a little bit too uncomfortable, and it probably would have slowed the pace down a little bit. In conclusion, this is an excellent 80s animated film. The animation is what you come to expect from Don Bluth, especially when he was at his peak in the 80s. The voice work is excellent. The score by James Horner fits the tone of the film excellently, and the Diana Ross song at the end also fits the film too. I'd actually forgotten how good that song was until I watched it again, and the end credits, I'm like, oh, I'd forgotten about this song. The tune, the melody starts going in my head again, and like, oh yeah, this song, I forgot about it. Sharptooth is scary, but he's not going to cause nightmares. The characters, even though they're dinosaurs, you do relate with them a little bit, and of course the message, while it is a little heavy-handed in there, a little bit, it's just the right amount to where it's not like getting like that, like too in your face. It's not like the end of Rodan in the English cut where it's like, feel sorry for the Rodans, feel sorry for the Rodans. I don't know why that one came to mind, I guess, the whole dinosaur connection. But if I have to give this film a rating, I would give it a 4 out of 5. If you have never watched The Land Before Time and, are hesitant to watch it because of, the whole series and the milking of it, I would say watch it. It's on Netflix at the moment. And definitely give it a watch if you're a fan of Bluth and you haven't seen this film. If you like dinosaur-related films, or you're just a fan of good animation, definitely watch it. If you choose to watch the sequels, that is up to you. I'm not going to tell you one way or another to, but if you decide to, unlike this one, they are musicals, and the animation quality does change.